I can imagine they have to deal with like all of the winter, the snow that we all do. It is the craziest market in the worst weather that I've ever seen. So we wanted to help you through this crazy market today through how to win more multiple offers. So I got my business partner and my friend Tom on, who's going to help me get through this. These are not things from Tom and I. These are things we've took from our colleagues in our coaching program, the core training, which I'll talk about a second. And these are how they win, right? So we have stolen ideas from realtors that net $1 million in income. That's not their revenue, that's their actual income on their tax returns, and have at least $1 million in the bank. So that's a requirement to be a coach in the core. So these tactics are proven. We pulled the top 5 realtors realtor coaches in our program, and this is what we came up with. So there's just a little bit how your lender can tell you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how great we are. Hopefully the proof will be in the pudding if you've worked with us, and I would imagine most of you have worked with us that are on. If not, we'd love the opportunity at the end to figure out how we can establish that relationship. But that is not why we are here today. We are here to help you win more multiple offers. And when you win more multiple offers, we have buyers that don't ask us for 15 different pre-approvals, 18 different numbers. I was getting calls till 9:15 on a Sunday, people putting in offers. It is chaos. It is nuts. I've been doing this for 20 years now at a pretty high level. And the only market I can compare to it is 2004, 2005. Would you agree, Tom?
I think so, yeah. I mean, maybe a little into 6, but it was, it's been crazy. It's definitely the spring season has already started, even though it's not spring.
Yeah, so it don't look like spring outside, but spring has sprung. So thank you guys all for joining us. Tom and I are just going to kind of go back and forth. We love Evelyn, who will facilitate this. We'll stop in at some questions. We'll call on some of you. So your unmute button's in the bottom left-hand corner. We'll call on you to get some of your best practices and maybe to share. I kind of gave a heads up to my Summit Funding LOs that are on. If you guys got anyone we should highlight today, shoot me a text, and while Tom's talking, I'll call on some of them. So 42 participants, 43. We're going to get started. Thank you all for joining. Evelyn, please record this if you're not already. And this is how to win more multiple offers. So I'm going to start with this. You can't always win, and I know price is king. I don't think you have to do all of these every time. But what I want to achieve today is you take 2 or 3 things out of this that you put in your tool belt, and you know once you have these opportunities to use them, that you use them. I believe the more often you do each of these on every offer, the higher your probability is to win for your buyers. And let's be honest, if we have that same buyer in our back seats showing them properties for 3 months, that's not as effective as if you can get them done on the first time, right? So everyone thinks price is king and that's the only thing that matters. I can tell you that it's not. So I think the first and most important thing is to understand the mindset from the seller's perspective. No matter what we want to conclude, we know the sellers are in charge right now. Inventory is low, demand is high, they are in charge. So what can we do to think like the seller and get them an offer that a seller would like? I think it's super important to build relationships with all agents in your area, right? And to have that personal relationship. We are still humans making decisions. The human element, it just comes up throughout many transactions. So be in relationships with the other agents. Ask probing questions. The more questions, I think, wins more often, and great questions build deeper relationships. right? So whatever you can find out from the seller side, when do they have to leave? What's attractive to them? Where are they going? How did you get this listing? How do you prospect to get most of your business? I think when we get busy, we forget about the basics, right? And the basics are still about the relationships. So make sure you're building great relationships when you are placing in an offer. Be the professional. I like submitting offers in person, emailing and calling, sending a video text to them, delivering the offer with integrity instead of just emailing it in. Integrity and professionalism, I think, are key. Make sure it's easy, collaborative, and affordable from the seller side. And what I mean by that is if they have to go find another house, make it easy for them to do that. I think too many buyers get lined up in what they have to do, and they don't think about it from the other side, right? They don't think, what does the seller have to do? What's going to be hard about this for them? How can I make it easier on them? Sometimes it's not all about price. Those things come into factor. Compliment the property, right? Compliment the other realtor's achievements. Just really go after the relationship. Discuss how perfect the home is in the neighborhood for the buyers, right? Like I'll tell you, the last house I sold, we had 8 offers. They were all around the same price point. We didn't go with the highest offer, right? We went with the offer that was very close to the others, that came with a great pre-approval letter for a lender I trust. I'm a lender. I want to make sure that's rock solid. And candidly, they sent a picture of their family, and we built the home for our family. So to see another family with kids the age of my daughters coming in there, enjoying the home like we had, like that resonated with us. And maybe there's a RESPA violation there somewhere, but we went with their offer, right? And it was the human element. So they talked about how perfect the home was for them. They talked about going to Burley Elementary School, where my daughters would have went if we stayed there. They talked about the park down the street and how important that was to them. That's where I took my daughters to go swinging. Like, it just was something that resonated with my family, and we went with their offer, and we've stayed in touch with them after closing. So that's just been super cool for us. I think the second thing, I will give it over to my business partner, Tom. What are some things that you see work as far as letters?
Yeah, I mean, this is where, so when you submit an offer, when you get an offer, that's just a piece of paper. And I think Chad kind of touched on it a little bit. This is the opportunity for you to stand out and create that emotion, right? Many times this home is either their first home, from the seller's perspective, right? We're putting our mindset in the seller. So this is the first home they've owned, or this is maybe where they had their kids, or maybe there's just lots of memories there. So again, getting in that mindset, one great technique, and I'm sure many of you have already employed it, is using that handwritten letter, right? It gives the offer a little bit of person. It has the ability to try and create the relationship. So the reason why typed is not good, this is literally handwritten, is because it breeds emotion. When you get something in the mail and it's handwritten, whether it be a thank you note, whether it just be a letter, and obviously these are days of old, it just pulls on your heartstrings a little bit, and it allows you to identify with them. So this handwritten letter, as many things like Chad had made mention, it humanizes you, and you can bring up things, and this might be cheating a little bit, but I'm sure there might be some pictures around the seller's home. You know if they have children, so you can identify in that. You know if they maybe have pets, so perhaps you can liken a story or create some type of a bond by doing this. And I know personally that I've had clients that essentially have done this, and it has created that opportunity for them, even though it wasn't the price that got them there. It was that emotion by someone allowing or giving up their home to someone they know that is going to value it just as much as they have and share in the life-changing events, whether that's children or pets or retirement, whatever it may be, that they feel that they can create that bond. Now, I know part of what we had said was, in this COVID environment, so perhaps it's hard for you to get a handwritten letter. Some of the other things that we've employed here that have worked well, whether it be in conjunction with or in addition to or just on its own, the videos. It's everybody has, whether it be their cell phones, whether it be, look at us right now on Zoom, options to create these videos. And this is even almost more impactful sometimes when you get that video from that family that says, I can just picture myself in that bedroom, my daughter in the bedroom at the top of the stairs, or things of that nature that again just create that warm bond with the family. The other thing we found that has really been, or that some of them have used, is the lender videos. When you throw the lender in there, getting again that face-to-face or getting that whole experience that, this buyer is solid. I've gone through things. I've known them for 10 years, whatever it may be that creates it. It just creates a little semblance. And again, Chad made mention when he sold his property, those were some of those things that took it over the top. And again, I'm sure that you're doing some of these things, but if you can do them all in conjunction or add to it, it can create something that's really powerful. And again, it takes away the forefront of just a piece of paper with the actual dollar amount or figure that's on there. And so all of these are easily done. We can help with those and can create a huge effect at trying to and being able to win that offer, especially when there's multiples that are coming in. So.
Absolutely. Hey, Mike, I know you have been one of the best in our office to help facilitate multiple offers, and I just see you winning a lot. What are a couple of things that you've been doing, and maybe you have an agent on that could share some techniques from the relationship side that they're doing to make their offers stand out?
Yeah. Connor, why don't you, if you're on, are you on right now? Is Connor on? I was going to say, Connor's had a pretty good success ratio this year. I mean, I think what you're saying right now, the letters, the videos, like one of the things that we do on all of our offers that are powerful is, doing something that makes your offers stick out and then having the lender actually call over to reinforce how strong the buyers are, that we'll close on time. They're not worried about their jobs during COVID. I'm finding that I've had literally 3 offers accepted while I'm on the phone making that phone call this year, just by calling over on behalf of the client. I know the realtor that's putting the offer together. We work really well together. We're going to make sure this is going to close on time with flying colors. So Connor's had a couple success stories with videos that he sent over that have worked out well. And doing that video with me having the call come right behind it has really made our offer stick out here in the first quarter.
So what you're saying is like Connor shoots a video to the listing agent, so hopefully the seller can see, and you as his lender supporting that offer also send in, hey, they're rock solid. They have 800 plus credit scores, great jobs that aren't impacted by COVID, plenty of down payment. And not only have I pre-approved them, I've pre-underwrote their file. Their deal will close unless there's something wrong with your property.
Exactly. And the one I can comment on that he just did is he had a couple that took a video with them and their golden retriever in the picture and sent that off. And then the seller actually wrote him a page-long letter back saying how much it reminded him of them. They have a golden retriever too, and it reminded them of them when they bought their first home. And then in conjunction with that, I called to let them know I've met the buyers in person. We've gone through all their income, their assets, their credit, their A++. They're not worried about their jobs during COVID. So that just, what we're finding and what the feedback I've gotten from the listing agents that have accepted our offers is that they've called other lenders and no one's calling them back. So they don't know like the certainty behind that deal that it's going to close on time and close with flying colors.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when I get the call from the listing agents right now and they're calling me. I'm like, wow, I was about to call you. You are on it. You're really serving your client. So thanks for sharing, Mike. And I know you do a great job just locking in that deal. I think the videos, I think the handwritten letter, it's just the relationship aspect of it. So I promise this is going to be the only part where we plug ourselves, okay? And I'm not saying it has to be us, but use a trusted lender, and Mike talked about it. So I just see a lot of sellers not trusting the big banks, not trusting the online pre-approvals, okay? So I've talked about this many times, but there's 3 types of pre-approvals, okay? There is a level 1 pre-approval. It is what you get from some of the bigger banks. It is what you get from some of the online lenders. I know locally that Guaranteed Rate does an online pre-approval. I know Quicken obviously does a online pre-approval. To me, if I'm a seller, I'm not accepting them. If I'm a listing agent, I'm not accepting them. There's no validation on any of the information they put in. It is just the client putting data into a computer system and software that spits out a pre-approval, right? So the pre-approval is only as good as the data that the buyer input, right? Well, the buyer doesn't know that you have to have a 2-year history to use commission income. The buyers doesn't know that if you're changing jobs and you're all commissioned, there's going to be a problem with your qualification. So make sure you are getting at least a level 2 pre-approval. That's the next type of pre-approval. That's what we do. That's meeting with the client face-to-face over Zoom or in person. That's getting all of their documentation. That's having a meeting to advise them of what they can go up to. And just for my team, we typically don't go much above a 33% debt ratio. That means about 1/3 of their debt is their income. So you can qualify for a mortgage up to 50%, but it leaves you no wiggle room. Right? And just to give you an example, if you didn't have that wiggle room in your pre-approvals that you did 2 weeks ago, guess what? Interest rates are now up over 0.5% of 2 weeks ago. So you're seeing rates that were 2.625, 2.75, they're 3.25, they're 3.75. So make sure to revalidate those pre-approvals because a lot of those people might not qualify anymore with those higher interest rates. So that's why we leave a lot of wiggle room for customers to qualify in our pre-approvals. The level 3 pre-approval is the highest level of pre-approval you can receive. That is the pre-approval has been authorized and approved by an underwriter, okay? That is about as close to shopping with cash as you can get, okay? So there's 3 types of pre-approvals. I would not accept a level 1 pre-approval if you're a listing agent. I would make sure it's either a level 2 or level 3 pre-approval. If you call them and ask that question and they don't know what you're talking about, it's probably not a level 2 or level 3 pre-approval. I think it's important to work with lenders that can close quickly. You see a lot of lenders at 45, 60. I've even seen some at 75 days right now. That's not good enough to get a deal done when you have someone like us that can do it in 25 to 30 days on conventional deals. So make sure you check in with the lender and use our ability to be a lot quicker than the bigger banks and bigger institutions. Are they willing to be a partner in the transaction, your lender? And when I say that, are they willing to do what Mike Black says he does? Are they calling the listing agent? Are they advising the client face-to-face? Are they doing all that legwork and just, fact-finding from the beginning of the client at the beginning of the process? I will tell you, to have a bulletproof pre-approval, it's a lot of work. We're pre-underwriting the files. It's very easy to be like the rest and just say, yep, it's pre-approved and be a pre-approval machine. Those are the deals that fall apart throughout the process. So we just have a commitment to not be that type of lender. Calls and videos to the listing agent to help them pitch the offer. That is something we do. Okay. We are not on this right now because of capacity. We come in and out of doing a 15-day close on time guarantee. Right now that's on 25 days on my team. Every team is a little different. Check with whoever you work with of what theirs are. Are they a top lender, right? Check to see if they work, have rankings in the Scotsman's Guide. I know you guys follow your rankings quite a bit. Make sure that you're working with someone that has a large team that reports to them. So the difference between us and a lot of other lenders is all of the people on our team work for us, right? If you work with like Wells Fargo, for example, I used to work there for 5 years. My processing was done in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I never saw the people. I never worked with the people. They didn't report to me. They were just a service to me. So, when push came to shove, was I their boss? Was I the one controlling the transaction? No, I wasn't. They were controlling whatever transaction they wanted to control. So that's how a lot of the lending industry is set up. Make sure you're working with loan officers that have teams that work for them, right? My top agents, they say jump, we jump, and we get it done for them. And then make sure they have a track record of closing on time, right? So these are things, as you have listings, you should check with the lenders that you're accepting pre-approvals on to make sure they're doing all these things. And just a final listing tactic, we are seeing prices just get bid up immensely. It's crazy. Do yourself a favor. When you have a listing, be there at the appraisal or have a team member there. Pull the comps, give them to the appraisal. These appraisal issues have just started with how high prices are getting bid up. So you can help eliminate some of that issue by bringing comparables to the appraisal and presenting them to the appraiser. So those are the rest of the time. We will not talk about lending, but those are what we think, whether it's working with us or another trusted lender. Just make sure you don't get caught up in the big banks and the large lenders that don't have teams. It's just a machine and they're not loyal to you. And we are loyal to you. So Tom, take it away with some things that the buyers need to expect throughout the process.
Absolutely. So I think we talked about seller mindset. I think buyer mindset is huge as well. Have you prepared your client? We've all been through this many, many times. It's not a big deal in theory for us. This is probably the first time or second time ever that our buyers have gone through this. Get them in the right mindset. Help them to understand what to expect. It's very stressful, very exciting. It's just a crazy time as they find these homes and they fall in love with. So what do I mean by that? I think the biggest thing, first and foremost, make it your decision. And what I mean by that is make sure your borrowers, your clients, purchasers understand that the hardest part is getting under contract. Don't necessarily, if they think that this is 90% the house or they're somewhat certain that this is the one, it is better, write the contract and get it in as opposed to waiting and thinking. Waiting and thinking on it will eliminate the potential option if you decide to go ahead with it. Explain that to them, because at the end of the day, if you have, like you should, the attorney review, you have inspection contingency, if those are in the contract and you're not striking those, let's be clear, it's pretty easy to get out of a contract if you need to. Have that conversation before going to see the house so they know whether or not they're ready to go, because a lot of times the first one that gets in there is the one that's going to get it. I was talking to a borrower actually this weekend, just calling to find out how their search was going, and they said they had 4 houses they were supposed to go see. 2 were under contract before they even got there. They are going quick. So be ready to put the offer, put the pen to paper, but they are not going to do it if you haven't had that conversation with them before. Even the little things we put on here, do you have 2 checks, right? Have them understand, what does that process look like? The initial earnest money, the second earnest money. One of the conversations that we have with our borrowers that I would encourage you to have with your borrowers is have an understanding of what it's going to take to get the property. One of the things that we try and explain is, and maybe you know, maybe you don't, did you know that interest rates, whether it's 5% down or 25 or 20% down, there's no difference? So whether you put 10% or 5% down, your interest rate will remain the same. Why do I bring this up? If in the event they're set on putting 10% down, perhaps that's a way for you to do a higher price. 5% down is not going to change their interest rate. And a lot of people don't thoroughly understand that because they haven't had that conversation, whether it be with their lender or backed up by you. And so it could be an opportunity for you, if you know that this is going to go over list price or it's going to go above, it's an opportunity for you. And I would assume or hope that you would have that conversation with us as your lender first, but it's an opportunity for them to perhaps go higher than they may have thought in order to get the property that they love. So having those types of conversations and making sure your buyer is fully prepared when they walk in that house to, number one, write the offer if it's the right one, and understand that there are options and opportunities if in the event push comes to shove, they have to get out of it. So,
hey, Tom, I love what you said there. And this would be one thing you guys should all write down. I love it because I think we all think that business is, we got to make these big, huge sweeping changes and we got to work more 20 or more hours. I know just from being in coaching and having a lot of growth in my career, sometimes it's just these small things and these small tweaks that we make. So I love the line that Tom said for your buyers: make it your option to go under contract, not someone else's. And I think it's always super important to follow that up with a story about a buyer that regretted not doing that, right? I had a place that we tried to buy and I held out and I thought about it for a day and the place was gone. And I think I slept alone on the couch, Tom, for probably about 3 months after that. It was not good. So I wish I just would have put in the offer, went through the inspection, and then if I didn't like it, I could have canceled it, and it cost me $300 because that $300 would have been well worth the time of not having to sleep on the couch for 3 months.
Yeah, no, great story, and so true. To back it up with real life situations, I think helps with the impact.
Yeah. And I know, like, you know, that's another good conversation. I wanted to bring Brock Zaven up, who I think does a good job of preparing clients. He's an agent I work with. Brock, if you're on, unmute yourself. I see you went off of video, so maybe there he is. So one thing that I think is also super important is buyers don't know, especially if it's their first or second home, that it's going to be the 100% dream home, that there's not going to be any problems. I think, and some people get paralyzed about the what ifs of, you know, what was the Tom Hanks movie, The Money Pit, right? They think they're going to be on a money pit. So I think it's super important to say, like, hey, what are your non-negotiables in a home? What are those 5 or 7 non-negotiables that you have to have? And if you find a place that checks 9 out of 10 of those boxes, you should really consider making an offer. You know, the 90% rule is there's no 100% property out there. There's always going to be one small thing you might not like. Can you change it, right? What is a way you prep clients of, hey, it's not going to be perfect no matter what you look at?
Well, I think the key ingredient, and I believe Tom said it as well, is just setting the expectations up. Because if you don't set the expectations up right now, you're going to have a frustrated buyer in probably about 2 weeks, especially depending on what market you're in. But I mean, you pretty much have to set the stage that you're going into multiple offers. I don't care what price point it is. You just tell them they're going into multiple offers. So that way they're able to handle it. I always love it when they're like, well, you told us about this, and yes, we were prepared for this, and yes, we understand. So it's just setting those expectations up front of like, hey, I just want to let you know we're going into multiple offers. Here's some of our strategies that we've used that in case we get into this position, this is what we're going to need to do. So I kind of share some of my strategies and tactics right then up front. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is what some of our, in our state, the due diligence amount of money, what's going to look like. Here's what we're going to do with earnest money. Here's our dates. Here's our times. You know, let's get all the ducks in a row. Let's get everything that we have. Like you said, what's your non-negotiables? When do you need to move out by? If you don't move out at this point, do you have another plan? Do you have a place to go? Do you have a family member you can get to? Because if I can get you a house, but I need you to get a place in 2 weeks, can you do that? Okay, so I really go over a lot of scenarios. I use the Bill Belichick scenario of like, I pretty much plan for every single thing that could take place or I've seen, so that way my client is prepared for it when it could unravel. At least they feel very, very well prepared going into it, is the best thing I could say.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's, hey, this is a fast moving market. You're going to need fast decisions. Make it your option to go under contract and to cancel during inspection or to cancel before due diligence is done. Make it your obligation and right, not somebody else's, because you were too slow to make a decision. So I love that script, and I appreciate you sharing, Brock. Let's see. Next thing, present the contract and purchase in person, right? These are some, I call them like kind of, tactics. I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm saying these are a tool in your tool belt you could use if you have to win. Remove contingencies. Remove the appraisal contingency. Remove the home inspection contingency. I've even seen that. Remove the mortgage contingency, right? Now, let me reiterate. I'm not saying this is wise to always do. I'm saying these are things you can do to win if you feel comfortable with it and win your buyer. And I think it's important to preface, hey, I don't recommend doing this. I don't like removing home inspection contingencies, but this might be something that would win this multiple offer, right? So make sure that you give them all of the options that they could use to win. Now, you don't have to say that you recommend it, or you can say, I actually recommend it against this. But presenting all of the options to the buyer, I think, is super important. Another thing I see winning right now is large earnest money checks. If you're in North Carolina, large due diligence checks. The bigger the deposits, the more serious the buyer. So those are just things that I see can do a great job in winning. So write down a couple of those things, removing mortgage contingency. I'll tell you, if we do the level 2 pre-approval that I touched on, unless there's a problem with the property or the client loses their jobs, we're closing on the deal. The loan is going to close, right? So working with a really strong lender can help you remove mortgage contingency. That might be the thing that puts you over the top. Limiting inspection items. I've seen some agents do that. So Todd, you got anyone that you wanted to call on that you've seen doing a really good job navigate this environment?
Yeah, we won one on Sunday with Allison Bertling. She's on. We just worked together with the listing agent. We knew the listing agent. We had a good relationship with the listing agent. And Allison did a great job putting together a contract and presenting it yesterday. So, gosh, I had a conversation with the listing agent at about 5 o'clock, and she texted me and said that we got the contract. I think this morning she texted me. So, super excited about that. Allison, what do you think kind of won that deal for us? If you're on, you can unmute yourself.
And unmute is in the bottom left-hand corner. And for all of you that want to participate, there's a chat. Feel free to chat your questions in.
And I'm putting her on the spot, so she didn't know that I was going to be calling on her. So I don't know if she may have stepped away. But it was a great, it's a great deal. We just got the contract a couple minutes ago, and we're going to close on time and smooth in 30 days.
Awesome. So Tom, what are some other party tricks that you've seen win of late?
Yeah, so party tricks. This is what we like to call the little flair things to help obviously win some deals and things. So we've listed a couple here. I don't know if anyone has employed them, just with regards to kind of going back to how you started, Chad, getting in the seller's mindset. Are they going out of state? Are they going down the street? You know, what are they doing? Getting in their mindset. Maybe they need some more time to leave. Maybe they need, something that may be a little bit out of the ordinary to a certain extent. Inspections, right? We all go through inspections. I know in some cases people are scared to death of some companies versus other companies. So perhaps having the sellers being able to pick, you give them a list of 3 or 4 that you work with, letting them be able to pick. These little things all go a long way. A couple additional things that we have in there and we chat with our agents about is, so what about flexible close dates? Yeah, we could do it in as many or as short as, depending on the market at the time, 15 to 25 days, somewhere in there, quick close. Could we do 60 to 80 days in terms of a closing? Yes, absolutely. If they need more time, they haven't found a property, they're nervous, so they're concerned. Being flexible and having those conversations with your buyers is huge. We kind of touched on it a little bit, and we talked about the contingency side of things, but what about appraisal contingencies? A lot of times we've had a couple of things with regards to these increasing value market. I made mention, on one of these earlier slides, again, remembering and having the conversation with your buyers, no change in interest rate from 10% to 5%, or even 15% to 5%. So perhaps you put in some type of hey, if in the event it doesn't appraise out, we'll go at least 5% above whatever the appraised value comes in at. We're willing to do that. We will not come back at you. That could be super powerful in this environment. Maybe it never comes to it, but you put it in there. And again, if this is their 30-year home, this is where they're going to retire, it might make sense. If this is their first time purchasing and they're only going to be there for 3 years, okay, maybe not. But again, we have those conversations with your buyers And it's another way for you to do what we call these party tricks to try and at least set your offer aside from perhaps the seller. So
yeah, I got to tell a story, Tom, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you if you had any.
So my last, the home I'm in right now, the home I purchased about 2 years ago now, it was not on the market. Our agent did a great job of working his network to find us the home, and the owners did not want to vacate because their kids were seniors in high school and they wanted the house until their kids were out and gone to college. So this was in May. We found this out. We presented an offer and we rented back to them for 120 days. So I unfortunately was in a very small, very, how do I want to say this? The pictures were definitely Photoshopped because the place I saw online was not the place we stayed in, right? So it was a not so fun 3 months of living in an Airbnb that was super tight with 2 little girls in it. But it was just, hey, we were willing to be flexible. We wanted the house so much. It was perfect for us. Hey, we're willing. You guys take as long as you want. We'll give you till your kids are out of high school. You can lease back from us, and we'll move in when it's convenient for you. So it wasn't much fun to go through, but now we have the house, and if we wouldn't have went through that, I probably would have been sleeping out on the couch for another 4 or 5 months.
Right. So you got the place. You have a gorgeous home. You look back on it, and yes, it was frustrating, but I'm sure you'd do it again for the same result.
100 times, 100 out of 100 times. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Anyone that you want to call on, Tom, at this point that you think stands out with some tactics on how to win more?
Trying to look through the list here that we have, but kind of coming in and coming off.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Understand your market, guys. What is current appreciation? So I will tell you, I'm a mortgage lender. I'm a numbers guy. I graduated with a finance degree. I am numbers. And I live and breathe them all the time. But if you show me, like, there's a difference between talking numbers to me and showing me data and trends. And I'm like a 5-year-old. I like pretty little pictures with graphs that show me that the property is appreciated. So you will have to have the conversation right now of people being concerned of overpaying, right? It is a question. It is a concern that people are going to have, right? What you need to do is ask great questions. How long are you going to be in the property, right? How long do you plan on being in this home? Well, hey, here's current appreciation this year. Here's current appreciation, or here's the history of the last 5 years of appreciation. Here's the last 10 years of appreciation. So you told me that you're going to be in the property 10 years. I can understand and appreciate that you feel you're overpaying by $10,000, right? But with this appreciation and you saying you're going to be there for 10 years, right? That is, I know we're overpaying by $10,000, but as you can see, the last 10 years, that's going to turn into $100,000 for you. That's what the trends say. So it's a temporary overpay to get the house that you want for the next 10 years, right? So list price is a temporary setback, not a long-term one. And if someone's going to be in the home for just 2 or 3 years, maybe they shouldn't be buying a home right now. So having those conversations up front and preparing your buyers to make quick decisions will also help them be more decisive when they get involved in a multiple offer. And lead the client. Be the professional. You know what's best. Support what you say. I tell this to my team all the time. You can say it, but when you can say it and prove it with trends and with data, and with pretty little pictures like I like of graphs, you have so much information on the MLS. I don't think a lot of people use it. When you can substantiate your recommendation with data, trends, and pretty little graphs and charts, it just goes a long ways of helping sell people. So you can talk numbers to me all day long. I won't understand them unless you give me the numbers, show me the trends, and substantiate your recommendation. So make sure you're taking the time to do that. If they have objections, overcome the objections if you feel strongly that this property checks all these boxes. And like I said, present the data from the MLS or whatever source you use. Right now, as lenders, we have to have this very difficult conversation with sellers of, hey, guess what, or with buyers, excuse me, guess what? Your interest rate is 0.5% higher than last week. I know you just went under contract and you're all excited, but those rates we talked about last Saturday are now 0.5% higher. Those are the conversations we're going to have. So if I just tell that to someone, they might think I'm a used car salesman. I have to show them mortgage bond trading and show them the charts of what's happened and substantiate what I'm telling them with data and with numbers. So make sure you're leading the client and having those conversations with them. Tom, what do you think? What's another good way? I kind of touched on this with my story, but what are some other things you're seeing with leasebacks? You're muted.
Got muted there. I think obviously we talked about the lease back, so I think that's a great way if you know that they're staying for the long term. I think the other side of it though too is perhaps it's not the full 2 months, or in your case, Chad, 120 days, but it can be a huge undertaking to try and buy and sell in the same day. So assuming perhaps the sellers are able, maybe you don't have them move out for 2 or 3 days after the property. So it doesn't necessarily have to be necessarily a lease back in the sense that it's 120 days or 2 months. I mean, even a couple days to get cleaned up and get out of there, because we all know how stressful things are with regards to getting everybody put together, getting it all packed up, getting it out, and trying to close on both the property in which you're selling as well as the property in which you're purchasing. And so, just be creative with it. Find out what the needs are, again, in the minds and the ears or eyes of the seller. But be mindful of your client, but just have them prepared accordingly. So I think it's super key to be mindful and to know those things so that you can figure out what might make the most sense for your clients to do it.
Hey, Tom, is there any recommendations you have? I know we work with some FHA buyers. Catherine, thank you for asking this great question. It's an awesome one. I think there's this stigma out in the real estate community of like FHA is so bad and I'm not going to choose that if I have a conventional offer. So what are some tips you can do for FHA buyers? And I'll just start. I think if you have an FHA buyer, there is unfortunately the stigma against them. You're going to probably have to win on price first and foremost. Like if I'm selling my place, I'm not taking an FHA buyer over a conventional if their price is the same. So I think you got to have the discussion with your buyer, Catherine, that they're going to have to likely go higher than everybody else. What else do you think, Tom?
I definitely agree with that in the sense that having that discussion with your buyer. But the other side of it is, I think, again, creating that team with your lender. So literally similar to Todd, I just had a contract that was accepted over the weekend. It is an FHA for a multi-unit. And the conversation, I called the listing agent that I had this weekend, and he was concerned, rightfully so, about FHA. I said, listen, FHA is number one, not something to necessarily be concerned about. I can let you know the only reason for this FHA offer is more in regards to the total down payments and what is required for a 3-unit for a conventional versus, say, an FHA for owner occupancy. I mean, the difference is 20%, which is huge in this market. The buyer I have is fully qualified, amazing credit. But again, I was able to alleviate some of those concerns that would come with the stigma, if you will, of the FHA, because the borrower is only utilizing it for one of their great qualities, if you will, and that being the lower down payment on this multi-unit. So again, having that client or having that call with the listing agent or a video or something to that goes a long way. And here we are, we're under contract and we're getting ready to do it.
All right, so here's the big one that I think always needs to involve the realtors. So I would love for any of you to raise your hand if you use an escalator clause, because I see them happening a lot, and I see some agents that I work with very, very successful on them. So I'm going to kind of open it up, and anyone that wants to unmute themselves, if you use an escalation clause or an escalator clause, for your buyers to win.
These are super effective. I've seen them work really well.
And I'm happy to have the other side and hear about it if there's concerns you have about using it and what those are. And maybe we can have a little quick mastermind on the escalator clause.
Chad, why don't you explain high level what it is and maybe just from a...
Yeah, so it's hey, I will pay price X for this home. But if the seller receives another offer higher than mine, I'm willing to increase my offer this much more above this price, right? So I usually see the buyer's agents want that proven with a contract, one of the other contracts. So, hey, I am willing to pay $500,000 for your home. But if you get an offer at 501, I'm willing to go up $5,000 more incremental than any other offer you get. So, hey, if you get one at 501 that beat my initial offer, I'm willing to go to 506, right? So in theory, it allows you to beat any offer that comes in. Anyone use one of these of late and have it be successful?
I actually had an offer just recently accepted because we didn't do an escalation clause.
Okay.
The other offer did do an escalation clause, and we wrote a letter instead, and we didn't even have the highest offer, but the seller thought it was unfair for a buyer to use an escalation clause, so she went with my clients.
So you didn't use it and you won because you didn't use it. That's great perspective.
But now I'm like, do other sellers think that? I'm not really sure if it could have just been a one-off situation, but.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. Like every deal is unique and different, and you guys kind of being on the front lines of it and running the negotiation, it's important to know that. Do you use them, and was there any reason you didn't on this one?
The reason I didn't on this one is because they were just really nervous first-time buyers, and so getting them up to the price that they were already at was kind of difficult, and they were kind of like okay with losing it at that point. And so I didn't want to complicate the process by like bringing this escalation clause. Like they initially didn't even want to continue with the offer because a second offer came in, because the unit had been on the market for like 100 days. And then the second we put in our offer, another offer came through, and they were just like super overwhelmed. And so I just didn't want to complicate things.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great job kind of knowing what you were working with. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anyone that's used one effectively?
Hi, I've used the escalation clause where we went 5,000 over the highest offer to win a luxury home here on the north side of Chicago.
Good. Do you use it every time, or do you kind of pick and choose?
I pick and choose, because every buyer is not willing to do that. They feel like, first off, they want a deal. And then when they can't get a deal, they want list price. So to even take them over that threshold, you have to kind of gauge and determine how hungry your buyer is for the condo.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's important what you said there is not every deal, but I do pick some of them to do it. And what made you use it on this one?
Well, I knew that the condo was a very nice condo facing the lake. I knew that there were going to be multiple offers, and I wanted to have the best for my seller. So the best meant let's push the envelope and see how far we can go, because we're going to get an offer. It's just a matter of how high can we go.
Right. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share a success, or like Jamie did, hey, I didn't use one and that's what made me stand out? And I love that Jamie used the letter. That's awesome. I think the letter right now is super duper important.
I have one tip for you. Try to find out what kind of offer you're up against. If it's cash, increasing your offer by 1,000 isn't going to do much. You might want to go by 5 or even 10,000, because when some sellers weighing those two options, that 1,000 isn't going to carry a lot of weight.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like, hey, know what your competition is, right? And assessing your competition and see what you have that you're working with to win. That's really, really good. Anyone else want to share? All right, I'm going to move on. So, just so we can kind of wrap up what it is, how it works is, what is the original offer on the price? How much is the price escalation above any other competitive bid? And what is the maximum purchase price that it can reach for the multiple offers? So putting a cap on it. So that's just kind of the last tactic of how it can be used. We've seen it used time and time again to win. I think it works really well in a multiple offer situation, but if you are using them and you do get into this bidding situation, whether it's with an escalation clause or without, have the conversation that I did at the beginning. Appraisals are going to start to be a challenge, right? You really have to have the conversation with your buyers and possibly with the listing agent. Hey, let's be honest. There's not many comps to support this value. I always get the calls if an appraisal comes in low, and there's not a lot of them coming in low, but it's definitely more so than it has been in the past. Well, if you have backup offers, don't be shy about bringing those with you as a listing agent to the appraiser, right? I think it's our job to do our best to substantiate our price, use the comparables that you price the property off of, and bring a couple of those backup offers, right? Like, hey, this wasn't the only offer we had. Now, are they going to give a ton of weight to it? No, but they know that there were other offers there to substantiate that price. So make sure you bring those with. It's just a challenge you're going to see here over the next few months. Tom, I'll let you take it home.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like all of you are using some different techniques, tactics. I love it. I thank you all that participated. It's been great having you all on here. And my suggestion would be continue, take a couple of these things like Chad said at the beginning, get the mindset of the sellers, get in the mindset of the buyers, expectations and setting them. That's just at the end of the day going to help everyone through this process and working together as a team. If we can all come together and work for our clients to get them what they want, we're going to be successful at it. But I really appreciate all of you joining us. If you have any specific questions, or you and your lender, or you want the lender that invited you today to start making those calls or sending those videos, please don't hesitate to let them know. I know in some cases they don't want to step on toes or overstep bounds, if you will. So make sure that you guys are communicating and working together. But everybody that participated, on behalf of all of us here at Summit Funding, we're super excited to be partnering with you, to work with you. And if there's anything we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here for you.
Guys, we hope we did one thing to make you more money in this. And if we did, the way you can pay us back, give us one shot at a buyer. So if we don't currently have your business, we'd love the opportunity to work with you. We'd love to show you how we stand out in multiple offers and what we can do as a partner in your business. So it's just things like this. We want to help you make more money. And if we did that today, look out for a buyer for the loan officer that invited you. And just thank you so much for your participation and your trust in us. Make it a great spring market.
Thanks, everybody.